Months after two people were found murdered in a Virginia home, a family's au pair is now charged with the crime. I'm Gillespie. Thanks for joining us. Today we're taking a closer look at the case of 23-year-old Juliana Peres Magalhaes, who investigators say is responsible for at least one murder. Magalhaes was arrested and charged just this week, but the crimes date back to February of this year. It happened on February 24th in Herndon, Virginia. That's about 35 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. At 7:49 that morning, investigators say a 911 call was made by Magalhaes' phone. There was an issue with the call, though, and dispatch didn't get any information. But 13 minutes later, another 911 call came from that same number. But this time, it was 38-year-old Brendan Banfield on the line. Now, initially, police reported that Banfield said he shot someone in his home, stating a man had entered and stabbed his wife. When they arrived on the scene, investigators found 37-year-old Christine Banfield stabbed to death in an upstairs bedroom. Investigators also found the body of 39-year-old Joseph Ryan, and he'd been shot to death. At first, officials released few details about the case except to say Ryan didn't live in the home and they were unsure why he was there. But nearly 8 months after their murders, investigators now say it was the family's live-in nanny, Juliana Peres Magalhaes, who pulled the trigger and killed Ryan. To make sense of this case as we know it so far, we're joined now by former CIA officer and FBI agent Tracy Walder. Tracy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Sierra.
If we start at the very top, why did it take so long for any charges to be brought in this case?
Well, I think that that's an excellent question. This is actually where I used to live when I worked in the CIA. This is a very suburban area, really low crime rates typically in an area like this. And the interesting thing and the thing that comes to my mind is I think they were probably investigating whether or not the nanny pulled the trigger in self-defense. Was this something going on that she walked in on the stabbing? He tried to attack her and then she shot him. And I think that's what took time because typically, if this was a self-defense issue, charges of this nature wouldn't have been levied on her.
As far as the charges, she faces a second-degree murder charge, but is there a reason why she wouldn't face first degree?
So if it's first degree, really what they would need to show is premeditation. Look, they can always increase the charges at some point. Typically, you can do that. But I think they probably went with second degree because they don't have, in my opinion, enough evidence to really make a case about premeditation. And this typically, if we see something like a stabbing, that tends to be done with either a weapon of opportunity. So it could have been a kitchen knife that was already in the house, or it tends to be a domestic violence type of issue. And so a lot of times there's not premeditation that comes with that. Also with shooting, again, if this was a self-defense, I don't think we would be looking at a second degree murder, perhaps manslaughter in a case like this. And so I think really what this shows is she didn't necessarily plan this out for, weeks on end, but she had the intent of killing him when he entered the home.
And I think what's interesting here is that there were two people who were found killed in the home, but right now that live-in nanny, she's only facing one charge of murder for the shooting death of Joseph Ryan. So is there any reason why she isn't also charged in the stabbing death of Christine Banfield?
I mean, not to sound trite, I think that the simple answer is she didn't stab her. And that's probably why it probably took the police this many months to hand down these charges. That they also had to investigate who stabbed her as well. And it very well could have been the intruder in the home. I actually don't know the answer to the question. Or it could have been the husband. It could have been so many people in this case. But it sounds like that there is a preponderance of evidence that states that she did not kill the mother. Rather, she did kill the intruder.
So if we're taking a closer look at the husband in this case, Brendan Banfield, he's the one who dispatch first spoke with. And at the time back in February, he actually said that he was the one who shot Joseph Ryan in his own home. So if he didn't shoot Joseph Ryan, why would he say that he did?
Right. So I think that is the $1,000,000 question. And that could be for two reasons. One, he was in a state of shock and disarray when he made the call. And, just a slip of the tongue said, I shot him, where it was the nanny. Two, he's covering for the nanny, right? Those are, in my opinion, the two different reasons why he would have made sort of that slip of the tongue.
So, as of now, investigators haven't revealed a motive in the case. Do you have any ideas of what could have led up to these shootings and stabbing?
I do, but obviously it's purely hypothesis on my count, right? I would never want to state any of this on, fact. I think that there was some kind of affair or love triangle going on. A lot of it's going to depend on the reason for the husband, Mr. Banfield, stating whether he shot the intruder or the nanny shot the intruder. If he meant to say it, then perhaps he is covering for her and maybe they were involved in a relationship and the wife found out in some way, shape, or form. Or was the nanny involved within a relationship with this intruder and the wife stumbled in on it, right? Those are probably kind of the two things that I would be looking at. But again, that's purely hypothetical on my point.
Is it important for investigators to look into Joseph Ryan as to why he was in the home? Because right now, we, the public, aren't sure how he's connected to the Banfield family.
I think that that is an essential question on, why was Ryan there? Was he there to rob the home, or was he there because he was in some kind of a relationship with someone who was in the home, whether it's the wife, the nanny. I mean, that's the question. Was this just a crime scene that was stumbled upon, or not? And I actually think in a case like this, social media and the digital evidence is going to be incredibly handy to know what Mr. Ryan's movements were before.
We also know that Magalhaes is from Brazil. She's a live in nanny who was living in Virginia at the time, but she's not from here. So, is there a possibility that she could be deported?
There is a possibility that she could be deported. If she is looking at a second-degree murder charge, though, most likely not. That may also be another reason for not having first-degree murder on the table. We tend to there'd be more of a likelihood if the death penalty was on the table for her to be deported because Brazil doesn't have the death penalty and they won't extradite to us. So my guess is she will not be deported. She would be deported though after she finished her sentence. So if she's convicted, it really depends. If she's convicted and put away for life, obviously she's not going to be deported. If she's convicted for 10 years, then she'll be deported after that. That's when I worked at the FBI with folks who are foreign nationals but here legally. That was typically our protocol.
Investigators have also said that they're still looking for more information into this case, so asking for anyone to come forward, taking a look through evidence, etc. What are the next steps, do you believe, in this investigation?
I mean, and I say it all the time, digital, 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 digital. I think that that's a lot of times what really makes or breaks a case. And those things take a lot of time to process. I know that we have the benefit of pop culture and thinking that it's just omniscient and that it happens in 2 seconds. But that these things take a very long time to process, especially if maybe they were, communicating via encrypted comms like signals. I don't know. And so I think that that is going to be key here to really establish the relationships, if there are any, between all four of these individuals, quite frankly, because I think that's really what's going to be important. And that's what's going to point towards motives. And that's really what's going to find Mrs. Banfield's killer, because right now, no one's been arrested for that as well.
Another thing that we spoke about a bit earlier is Brendan Banfield. And I think what's interesting here is he does not face any charges, even though he initially said that he fired the weapon. Right now, we know that he doesn't have these charges and he actually has lawyered up. He isn't talking to police. Is there any reason why that may be?
I mean, a couple reasons. I think, first of all, most people know that when a spouse is killed, the first person you look at are the closest, and then you work out. So I think he had to have known that immediately he would have been a suspect. And so that's probably why he retained counsel so quickly. However, at the same time, I have to wonder if you are truly an innocent spouse. I don't know about most people, but I would want to help in any way, shape, or form to find my spouse's killer. So I don't know that I would be so quick to lawyer up. And so that does give me a little bit of pause. I try not to focus on things like that because people do so many strange things in terms of their behavior when catastrophes sort of strike, if you will. But I really have to wonder why he wouldn't want to do everything and anything to try to find his wife's killer.
Yeah, still a lot of question marks in this case. We've got one suspect in custody and another murder that nobody's been charged with. So, still working to learn more information. Tracy, thank you as always for helping us out understand a bit more about this case.
Thank you, Sierra.
Right now, Magalhaes is being held in the Fairfax County Jail without bond, and again, Brendan Banfield has not faced any charges in the case. Reporting for Law&Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.